Okay, y'all, this lesson is going to kick off our new unit, and our new unit is going to focus on a writer's craft. Craft is the tools and techniques that a writer uses or the intentional choices that a writer makes. So, in this unit, we're going to look at writer's craft in different poems, picture books, short stories, and all of those texts that we look at writer's craft in are going to be writers from Washington State. Some will be current writers from Washington State, others will be pulled from throughout Washington State history. And then you're going to get a chance to play with your craft as a writer as well in writing about the research topic that you are researching currently in your social studies class. So the text that we're going to look at today is from a current day Washington State writer. She's a poet, and her name's Susan Rich. And the poem we're going to look at is a love letter or a love poem to Washington State. So if you have not yet pasted in that poem, if you could make sure you paste in that poem into the grammar and craft section of your composition notebook. So, in this poem, Susan Rich is going to use a lot of details from her own experiences in this poem. And you're going to look first at the details that she chooses from her own experiences. So, that's our learning target for today. Writers use details from their own experiences in their poetry. So, let's get started. I'm going to read it once through and then we'll start to highlight. This is Why the Relationship Might Work by Susan Rich. Because the call of shorebirds wakes me, and this morning I watched a seagull sunbathe on a wine-colored Camaro. Because the air offers up notes of salt water, and scrub rose whenever I walk out the door, even if I'm on the way to the grocery store. Because the wine, because Walla Walla and Hendrix, because we travel by ferry and the world's longest floating bridge, because flocks of joggers along Alki Beach nod a quick hello like gold finches keeping a pace to the beat of black wings, because tumbleweed and tulip, fish ladder, and a loaf carousel, because we declared an official oyster. Because hemlock, because humans who plant sun gold tomatoes and build boats from cedar and oak, because I picked you from all 50 states to be my Valentine of sweet onions and jazz apples, because the rain, because someone chose a piece of petrified wood for a state gem, and because without the journey out west, we would have never met. So Susan Rich's poem is really a love poem to the actual state, to Washington State. And in it, she includes all of these details that she loves about Washington State. And she includes two types of details. She includes imagery and sensory details, these pictures, these experiences that she's had. She includes things that she sees or hears or tastes or smells or feels, right? Really these sensory details that paint a picture for the reader. And then she also includes details that are specific to the place, like important people or places, or things that Washington is known for, like fairies, tulips, oysters, jazz apples, rain. So I'm going to have you do some highlighting right now. I'm going to have you start with imagery and sensory details. So what I'm going to have you do is I would love for you to highlight some of the imagery or sensory details that you see Susan Rich include. These are sights, sounds, things that she tastes, smells, feels. For example, when she says this morning, I watched a seagull sunbathe, right? The I watched a seagull sunbathe is sensory details. The notes of salt water, right? We can smell the salt water and the scrub rose. All of these are imagery or sensory details. So what I would love for you to do right now is I would love for you to pause the video and go through and highlight any imagery or sensory details that you see Susan Rich using in her poem. You're going to highlight those in yellow. Okay, once you've highlighted your imagery or sensory details, let's take a look at details that are specific to the place. And you're going to highlight these in pink. So some of the details that I see right away that are specific to the place, we have Walla Walla and wine, specifically from Walla Walla. We have Hendrix. We have fairies, Alki Beach, gold finches. Right, all of these are specific things details that she loves about Washington State that a reader from Washington might clue into that Washington's known for. So pause the video right now and I want for you to go and to highlight in pink any of the details that are specific to the place. So now you're going to get a chance to write your own poem to a place. So you can choose any place. That could be really anywhere, your bedroom, it could be a city, it could be somewhere you've traveled to, it could be one of your favorite places in Seattle. So here are a few places that I was playing with. So I was thinking maybe of doing Seattle. I was thinking of writing about my husband and I traveled to Greece a couple summers ago, and I really loved traveling in northern Greece. So I was thinking about writing about northern Greece. Or my parents own a lake cabin, and I grew up going and spending all summer at the lake cabin. So that was a place I was thinking of writing a poem about. And then also I spent a year living in London, and I lived on Store Street. So I was thinking of writing this poem about a love poem to Store Street. So your poem needs to include both imagery and sensory details and details that are specific to the place. So because I wanted to include details that you would relate to, I chose to write my poem to Seattle. So I started by looking and brainstorming details that are specific to the place. So I drew a circle, I drew Seattle in the center, and then I just wrote down all of these specific details, right? Important people, places, things that Seattle's known for. So I wrote about breweries, kayaking, Pike Place Market, Ballard, local restaurants that are always busy, Gray Days, Georgetown Donuts, Pride Weekend, Spring Tulips, dog parks, Mount Rainier, local coffee shops. These details that I love about Seattle. So then what I did, I brainstormed all of these details. Then what I did is I took my brainstorming and I went and I added imagery or sensory details, sights, sounds, tastes, smells, feelings for these details. So, for example, I took Pike Place Market and I wrote about the smell of fish, bright colors of flowers, pushing through crowds, right? Ballard, walking down Ballard Avenue, local shops, feeling confident, right? Gray days, wind chill, wet socks, plants that are so green, right? Georgetown Donuts, warm chocolate ginger donuts, cold and warmth. Spring tulips, feeling alive, breathing fresh air, Pride Weekend, pure joy, so many colors, sun, dancing. You get the idea. What I would love for you to do right now is I want for you to choose a place. Really, it can be any place. You can also do Seattle if you want. You could do Washington State. You could do some place you've traveled to, some place that is just your favorite place to be. Write that place in the middle of a circle. And I want you to start by brainstorming the details that are specific to that place. Just all the different details that are specific to that place. Things that you love. And then what I want you to do is I want you to add imagery or sensory details. Sights, sounds, tastes, smells, feelings. So take a moment and do that now. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take these brainstorming. And here's the great thing about poetry. There is no form to poetry. You can just throw a bunch of details in a list, break it up into stanzas, and it'll look and sound like a poem. So basically that's what I did. I took each one of these details and the imagery that I wrote about those details, and I kind of just broke it up into stanzas. So here's what I came up with. This is called Gray Days by me. It is not beautifully crafted, but I'm playing with all these details and imagery that I brainstormed. So here's my poem. Gray days, the smell of fresh rain and pine, pulling off wet socks and curling up with warm blankets and books. Notice that I just took gray days, right? That was my detail, and then I described my imagery in a list and I put it in a stanza. I just broke up it into lines. Walking down Ballard Ave, brightly colored local shops, feeling like I'm swimming through a sea of hipsters and moms pushing strollers. Sitting in a local coffee shop, the smell of freshly brewed coffee and raspberry scones, a hum of conversations and the tapping of keyboards. A slice of all modes apple ginger pie, the burst of tart apple touches my tongue. Kayaking on Lake Washington, my paddle pushes through the crisp, cold water, Mount Rainier in the distance. Loud breweries and IPAs, the taste of hops, food trucks, and beer-drinking husbands. Pride Weekend, celebrating love, dancing with a rainbow of half-naked people under the Space Needle. Spring tulips, blooming dogwood trees, sunny afternoon bike rides on the Burke. A reminder that this city that I love is full of color and life. So, a lot of times poetry feels really daunting. We feel like, I don't know where to break up the lines, I don't know where to break up the stanzas. So, I want you just to play with it today. I'm just going to quickly model, right? I could have just written out this: gray days, the smell of fresh rain and pine, pulling on wet socks and curling up with blankets. And I just chose to break it up where it felt right. Okay. And it doesn't need to be correct. There's not a specific rule or reason for breaking up lines and stanzas. You're just going to have to play with it and play with the sound. And if by the end of the period, all you've done is just written a paragraph about a place that you love, that's fine. It's totally fine. Really, today is about playing with details of an imagery from a place that you love and writing about that. So I'm going to ask for you to get started. Remember, your job is that you are writing a love poem or just a paragraph, either one is fine, about a place using imagery or sensory details, sights, sounds, tastes, smells, feelings, and then details that are specific to that place. Get started.